Hello there, I'm Angela, and I have a very specific thing that I would like to talk about today. It is an appeal, a request for some help in this genre, as well as some recommendations of my own if you like it as well. And that genre is cozy and spooky. That seems like it has a lot of books that would fall under that, but as I was thinking about it, it's actually quite specific because when I think of cozy and spooky, specifically spooky, I don't mean witchy. Cozy witchy books is its whole genre in and of itself that I love, I'm going to be reading more of. But this spooky has some haunting elements, has some paranormal elements. It can be books about witches too, but typically not just witchy books because that's a different vibe than I mean. It's a little strange to explain, but I will tell you that the thing that made me realize that this is a genre that I absolutely love are a couple of things. Number one is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Not just the book, but also the movie. I highly recommend the movie. The book and the movie were both so good, which is kind of rare, but they're a little bit different, but mostly true to each other, and they're both incredible. Coraline is super cozy spooky to me. Like, I will have it on in the fall in the background while I'm like playing Animal Crossing or cross stitching or something that you can do and watch or listen to something. And it just having Coraline walking through this house and exploring, and then the nighttime, it just feels so cozy to me for some reason. And the movie or the book is the same. Like, they both feel that way. The other book that I find cozy spooky that I listen to the full cast audio, highly recommend the full cast audio of, is The Graveyard Book. It's a little shiny, but The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This has won, the Newbery Medal. It's won so many awards for good reason. It takes place in a graveyard, and it has a cast of characters, and like the whole thing is about this murderer who didn't kill this baby, killed the parents but not the baby, and so the baby toddles to a graveyard, and the ghosts of the graveyard decide to protect the baby, but the killer is out to get the baby still. And so you'd think, like, that sounds very tragic, that doesn't sound cozy at all, but yet it is, because these are both aimed towards younger readers, so that's part of it. Is I think books aimed towards younger readers have a cozier vibe, but also it's the characters. It's still lighthearted. It's still heartwarming. It has messages. It's not just like gore or anything like that. So these two are my cozy spooky reads in the years. And then the other thing that I realized were the things that I like the most to watch. So I'm going to include these so you can understand what vibe I'm talking about, what I think of as cozy and spooky, and give you recommendations if you like it. So the two things mainly were Coraline and Haunted Mansion. The Disneyland, well, not just Disneyland, but the Disney ride Haunted Mansion. That I love because it perfectly blends the cozy lightheartedness with the spookiness. It's not just terrifying and it's not just silly, like, it's both. That's why Haunted Mansion is one of my favorite things. That is a good one. That's a ride, but it's the vibe, and then also the movies, like the movie Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy. Love it. Totally cozy, spooky. The new Haunted Mansion, it's a little less just for comedy. It was so good though. Like, it was great. That is cozy spooky. Like, it had a great message, but it was hilarious. Like, they both are that kind of genre. The TV show on BBC, it's the BBC version, but they have it on the HBO Max, of Ghosts. Oh my god, that is one of my favorite shows of all time. The cast is the best group of people. The show is wholesome, and yet it's got the elements of spookiness of like ghosts. So it is wholesome, funny, lighthearted, but with those spooky elements. The show Over the Garden Wall. That is the same thing to me. It has some spooky elements, yet it's so cozy and lovely to have on, especially in the fall. This is a new one to me, but it's been giving those vibes too, which is the TV show Charmed. I'm on the first season. Crazy enough, I love witches, and I never watched that show. And I started watching it, and like, yes, it's very like, I mean, the animation and like the sequences and the monsters and the bad guys, it's not like, you know, it's not like the most high quality things, but it's really good. And it's like, it's not just witchy, it's like spooky too, because it's got these other like supernatural elements to it, and yet you have like the coziness of the sisters in the home at the end of the day, and them all being to protect each other, and I don't know, it just feels kind of, maybe it's cozy too because it just takes place in like the main center is their house, which is like, you know, I don't know why that seems cozy to me. But that's why I'm trying to talk about it to give some ideas. These two kind of go hand in hand. The movie, What We Do in the Shadows. Oh my God, it is one of my favorites. I love it. It is Taika Waititi set, it's in New Zealand, and it is these vampires, and they all are housemates with one another, and they have like I love the scene, they have like a chore wheel, and they are like just living their life, and there's this like underground paranormal in Wellington, and they're obviously part of that because they're vampires, but it's like so funny and so like that kind of thing. Clearly the humor is an element of it, and to me that's cozy spooky. Then an offshoot of that is in the movie there are, not spoilers, in the movie there are some Wellington police officers that come to investigate, and they created a spin-off show also on HBO Max called Wellington Paranormal, and it is those two police officers from the What We Do in the Shadows and their journey doing their job but accidentally bumping into so much paranormal in Wellington, and it is so funny, spooky, funny, can be like, it's kind of like wholesome, like it's not like gory per se or anything like that necessarily. Those are the shows and movies that I think of when I think of what I mean, spooky and cozy. So far what I have in this is it has paranormal elements, it has lightheartedness, and it can go heavier, but it has lightheartedness as well. It typically, like if you have a house or like a setting space where like it's very comfortable and safe, that would be like the cozy element as well. And those are the books that I absolutely love. Do you have any recommendations for those? Because honestly, that genre, don't get me wrong, I like horror too. I like the not cozy spooky. I like the cozy mysteries. And that's not what I mean. I'm not talking about mysteries. Murder mysteries anyway. Because again, murder mysteries and cozy witchy are cozy spooky, but they're a totally separate genre for me. I'm talking about this very specific thing. And now that I'm saying it, I'm like, oof, this is very specific and niche. So you know what? This video might be pointless, but these are the vibes that I like. And if anything, you can get recommendations from this because cozy spooky is fantastic right now. So I recommend the book and movie of Coraline. I recommend the Graveyard book. These are both by Neil Gaiman. And this, I recommend the full cast audiobook. I believe it's on Audible. Either way, I know that Neil Gaiman narrates a version of the audiobook too, and I heard that that was good as well. So those are my first two recommendations. And then another middle grade series, I've talked about this so much, so you can watch my previous videos and like fall tags and stuff like that. But Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. This is a middle grade book series, and there's 4 books, and each book takes place in a season of the year. And this one starts in the fall. I would say fall and winter are cozy spooky to me. I mean, if you get cozy feelings from summer, then the whole series, but this is about, it's really about a girl and her 2 friends that she makes. She's dealing with grief and the loss of her mother, and she finds this book in this book where it's like a journal from this spooky thing that happens on a farm. And I won't go deeper into there, but you can kind of imagine what the spooky part is from this cover. It's so perfect to read in the fall. Another middle grade series that I find cozy spooky is the Cassidy Blake series by V.E. Schwab. The first book is The City of Ghosts, then there's The Tunnel of Bones, and then The Bridge of Souls. And I'm pretty sure that's it. I think it's just a trilogy, unless she's coming out with more, which I would love. And that series is about a young girl who has a brush with a near-death experience, and after that, she can see ghosts. And there's this ghost that is like her buddy following her around. And the funny part is that her parents are paranormal investigators. And the one is more about the history element. The other one is like about the paranormal element. And they have a show and they go around and explore these paranormal places. And it's really funny because she secretly can see ghosts. The other thing that I find cozy spooky, these are some like graphic novels. I, again, won't talk too much about this because I always talk about it, and that is Fangs. This is just, I guess this is more of a comic. It's like a collection of little, like each page is like its own little funny scene. And it is about a vampire and a werewolf who start to date. And each page is just a hilarious little scenario. Funny, spooky. The Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag. Oh, Fangs is by Sarah Anderson. The Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag. This was so sweet. It was great. This is about a boy where in his family, in his community, only the girls do witchcraft. And the boys are shapeshifters. But he actually likes witchcraft more. He can't get the hang of shapeshifting. He likes witchcraft, and then some events happen where his true powers and his true self can come to the aid of others. This is just very sweet, but like heartfelt. Loved that one. And then another one that like it makes me cry is the Seance Tea Party by Ramina Yee. This is involving a ghost and Halloween, so this is great to read at this time of year, a Halloween party / fall. And it really is about growing up but not letting go of what you loved as a child, like your younger self. You don't have to get rid of everything that makes you happy because it might seem childish. Like, oh my gosh, and the art, look at that. Same thing, like all of these art on all these are so pretty. So these are some cozy yet spooky book recommendations for kind of the younger age level. Now, for more adult age level, I'm gonna also bring out another Neil Gaiman because he's just like the king of cozy spooky sometimes, and that's The Ocean at the End of the Lane. The reason why I find this book cozy, okay, so first of all, what it's about. It is about a man who's coming back to where he used to live as a child, and he kind of forgot what happened there, but when he was younger, there were some things that happened involving like paranormal situations and witches, and I don't want to say what it is because it's short, so it's a really quick, wonderful read. The reason why I find it cozy, even though it's about like this paranormal being, is because of that like nostalgia feeling. He forgot all of these things and he is coming back, and he's now like getting little like, you know, when you get those sparks that something just clicks in your brain and you all of a sudden remember something that you had forgotten, and that just feels homey. And on top of that, the witches and their family and like what they do and try to help, and it just feels very lovely. So is it a cozy book? Not really, but I think like those elements of like remembering the past, and you know that you made it out of it, but you're like thinking back on these things that meant so much to you at the time, that makes me feel that way for this one. I also would say specifically this book. So there's the Wayward Children series by Shauna Maguire that I love so much. I would say the spookiest one out of all of them would be Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which is book 2. And that is because this takes place in the moors, which is a land that the main characters that you focus on is like a vampire. And one of the characters works for kind of like a mad scientist type person with like Frankenstein vibes of like bringing things back to life. And that's why I would call this one the most spooky. I'm not saying that this whole series is spooky, but this one gives you those vibes. And then the cozy element comes into me because this series is just, it's short, each are novellas, and you really get to know the characters, and there's like such emotion there. And like, this is about twins, and they're like fighting for their own journeys but also for each other, and it doesn't get too much into like super long things. Like, it just feels like something you could just curl up on the couch with and just like sip some tea or coffee and just read it real quick. I will say, if you haven't read the series, I would recommend you read the first book first. Like, definitely read Every Heart a Doorway first, because you get introduced to the characters from here, and you also get situated. Like, this is one of the ones in the series where one follows right after the other. Not all of them do that. I said no murder mysteries, but some of these do make you question if it is paranormal, surprisingly. So I'm just gonna put this in. The Last Seance is a collection of Agatha Christie short mysteries. They're all short stories. It says Tales of the Supernatural. So that's why I'm including this one if you're interested. And the reason why, too, is because these are all short stories. So to me, I find that cozy, that you could just like quickly read a little mystery and you're trying to figure out, is it supernatural? Is it a mystery? And that's very intriguing, and I find that a great, spooky, fun time. So Agatha Christie's The Last Seance, collection of short story mysteries. And I think lastly, maybe I'm the only one, but I'm going to include these as cozy, spooky. And these are 2 novellas. You know, that's another thing I'm noticing. These are all quick reads. I'm not saying that that's what I want. It doesn't have to be a quick read, but coincidentally, these all are quick reads. So maybe that's part of why I find it cozy, because you could just like curl up and enjoy that atmosphere and that story. Is that part of it? I don't know. These just happen to be, actually, wait, this one's not necessarily a novella, but it's relatively short. It's in like the mid 200s in page length. These are by T. Kingfisher, What Moves the Dead, and A House with Good Bones. This is a Fall of the House of Usher retelling, and this is more of a like Southern Gothic story where a woman goes back to her childhood home, and her mother, who's always been like very progressive in her thinking, now is all of a sudden displaying these like alarmingly bigoted thoughts, or like, for example, this painting that her grandmother had above the fireplace of a Confederate wedding is now back up for some reason. And I think a lot of us, maybe not a lot of us, but some of us in the United States have experienced that weird phenomenon when it feels like our parents are like backsliding in like these ways of thinking, and it kind of explores like that, but in a horror way. And yet the horror is like not too gory or anything like that. Like, it goes there. It goes there by the end of the book to places that you just are like, what is happening? But because it takes place in like a Southern Gothic atmosphere, it says it is a haunting Southern Gothic that explores the dark, twisted roots lurking just beneath the veneer of a perfect home and family. So this is it has the coziness of this, again, because I think both of these have this lighthearted humor of T. Kingfisher that is just absolutely my favorite. I love her like instances of humor. And on top of that, they take place in these big homes. Well, this isn't a big home, but like in homes. And to me, that's cozy. I love, haunted mansion. I love houses. I love mansion that like seems very like that's your safe place. But with spooky, sometimes it's not. So these are kind of like cozy, spooky horror books. But it's more for adults, so it's more on the horror side than I would say a lot of these middle grades that I recommended are. And that's my cozy, spooky recommendations / requests for if there are any books that you think of that are like this genre that you just pinged in your head like, oh, this is something that has those vibes. I don't just mean books, TV shows, movies. I just want more of that. Like I want more. I don't know. It's a very odd little subgenre here, and I don't know why I find some spooky things cozy, but it's just nice. So even if you don't have any recommendations or suggestions, please let me know if this is a genre you like as well. And if you do, what are your favorites? What is something that you like to reread or just have read the first time or seen or watched? And I'd love to chat about it because for some reason this is just something that I totally love. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. I love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, take care and enjoy your coziest, spookiest selves. I hope you have a great time. It is the best time of year. Imagine how many times I said the words cozy and spooky in this video.